Phoebus?
Yes. Here, let me help you.
Did you get your water?
Water?
Yes, Pargo said you and Eli went to get some.
Oh, yes, water, yes. Oh, hey, I think that's finished. Yeah. You with Pargo, huh?
At the cave.
Yeah.
He told me a story about an ape named Robinson Crusoe.
Oh. He has a way with females.
I think I love him.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and today I am giving my review of Episode 8 of the 1974 TV series, Planet of the Apes. If you like what I do here and want to show your support, be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. This is a series of reviews that is following every episode of the TV show, all leading up to a review of the full series later this year. If you haven't seen my reviews of any of the other episodes of the show prior to this one, you can check all of them out right here. And for those who want to follow along my reviews, or you just are interested in watching the entire show on your own, I've put a link down in the description where you can watch the show totally free. And as always, for those who have not seen the show and haven't seen this episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, I'll start with my general thoughts at the beginning before getting a little bit more detailed and going deeper into the episode and giving all of my more spoiler heavy thoughts. So if you want to know my thoughts but don't want to be spoiled just yet, you can watch the first part of this video, click off, go watch the episode for yourself, and then come back to hear the rest of what I have to say on the episode. So with all of that down, let's dive into Planet of the Apes, Episode 8, The Deception. Galen, Virdon, and Burke befriend a chimpanzee named the blind daughter of a human-friendly ape who was killed by a band of vigilante apes known as the Dragoons. Unaware that Burke and Virdon are human, Fauna soon falls in love with Burke as Galen and Virdon hunt down the Dragoons, only to discover that Fauna's uncle is one of them. So my first initial thoughts on this episode is that I think this is a really great episode of the show that has what I think is probably my favorite story that's been told in the show thus far. I really enjoyed the new character Fauna a lot, especially compared to how she is introduced. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about her, but I really ended up liking her a lot, and I think the relationship between her and Burke makes for a really good story, and it's really sweet. I think the stuff that's going on between the two of them, it doesn't get weird the way you think it might. It's actually very sweet, and it's actually kind of sad, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but I think there's also some great thematic work here that delves into how apes treat humans and vice versa, and I think all that stuff is really compelling. I think that stuff's really interesting, and again, I'll get into more detail in just a minute, but it gets pretty dark. It's stuff that parallels stuff that goes on in our real world, and I think that's very well done here. And also, I think this is the most well-directed and most cinematic episode to date. There's so many moments throughout this episode where I was just like, damn, that was really impressive. That felt elevated beyond some of the usual fare we get in this show. So overall, I was really impressed with this one. I loved the story they were telling with Burke and Fauna. I loved the stuff going on with Galen and the Dragoons. I loved some of the action we get in this episode. I love the themes that we're delving into here, and I really enjoyed this episode a lot. I'm not sure where it ranks among my favorites so far. I don't know if I like it quite as much as episode 3 or episode 7, the last episode, but it's pretty close to those, if not on par with those, and it is definitely up towards the top of my favorite episodes of the show thus far. So with all of that said, now let's get a little bit more in depth and get a little bit spoiler heavy and talk about my full detailed thoughts on this episode. The first thing I have to mention is I was completely shocked by the blatant KKK imagery that is in this episode that is used to represent the Dragoons. That is not something I saw coming in this show at all. I loved getting such an obvious parallel like that. It was also just really cool to see how something like that could be integrated into the Planet of the Apes universe. I've never seen something like that before, and I thought thought it worked really well with this story that they were telling. And then, like I said at the beginning, I think this is one of the strongest and most cinematic stories of the series. I really felt as I was watching this episode that this could have been stretched out into a 90-minute to 2-hour long movie. I think the story they're telling here, with everything with Burke and Fauna and everything with Galen going after the Dragoons and the stuff with Fauna's uncle being a member of the Dragoons and the stuff with the gorillas, I think all that stuff could have been fleshed out even further, and you could have made this into a really great Planet of the Apes movie that would have been really compelling. So that's kind of all I could think about as I was watching it. I was just like, this is great. I just want a little bit more. And because of that sometimes some of the stuff that's happening in this episode feels almost a little bit rushed, just because of how much I wanted to see more from these characters. That being said, I think they managed to get everything in that they needed to and make it compelling for what it is. The character that gets introduced in this episode, Fauna, I think is a really sweet character. Like I said up top, I wasn't quite sure what to make of her when we first met her. I thought, oh, is she gonna be kind of annoying? But within just a few minutes, I really got to understand and enjoy her. And I think she's very sweet. I think she's very kind-hearted type of character. I did want to get to know her a little bit more than we did, which kind of just goes back into what I said earlier about thinking this could have been stretched out into a movie, but I do like what we got with her. And I really liked the relationship between her and Burke. I thought it was really sweet. I thought it was really compelling. And it was also sad in a way. It's tragic in a way, seeing what this girl has gone through, what she's dealing with, the emotions that she's having to currently go through, and Burke coming in and just being his normal self, being that sweet-natured Burke self that she latches onto. It's sad, it's sweet again, and it makes for some really enjoyable scenes. There's a handful of moments between these two characters where you just really enjoy listening to them talk to each other. But it's tragic that ultimately she can't have what she wants, and you understand that. You have to watch him almost be the bad guy towards her, and it kind of sucks, but by the end of it, it works, and it makes for a really, I think, enjoyable relationship that plays out throughout the episode. And then when you get to the acting side of things in this episode, I think this is the best that any performer has done in this series today. The scene between Roddy McDowall and James Naughton, where they have to have a really intense argument, it's really well done. The performances from both of them are fantastic, and it's just a really intense scene that I thought was really well directed and just ties more into that cinematic feeling I mentioned earlier. And then thematically, what I love about this episode is that it touches on a lot of the same stuff that we get from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. By the end of this episode, the real message that they're trying to convey to you is how apes and humans can be just as flawed as each other, how apes aren't necessarily all good and humans aren't necessarily all bad. They explore it in other ways that wasn't explored through Dawn, in much more almost extreme ways than Dawn did it. So I thought that stuff was really interesting, and I wasn't really expecting it as I was going into this episode, so I really appreciated it when we got to the end. And then when you get to some of the gorilla characters here that are introduced, I found them very enjoyable here, and they service the story well. They don't just feel like more of those mindless henchmen gorillas that I feel like we've had in a handful of these episodes. They actually add to things here. They actually add to the story and add to the overall weight of the episode. And then one other character that we got that I was, again, a little unsure of at the beginning, but the character of Cestus, Fauna's uncle, I wasn't really sure where they were going with him in the beginning, and then when you get the reveal that he is a member of the Dragoon, I was completely shocked by that whole direction. It really opened up the episode for me, and I found him to be such a disgusting but really fascinating character, and such a clear parallel to the idea of racism and bigotry being hidden in plain sight, which is something that obviously you can relate to in our times, but really just any point in human history. And just like Fauna, I just would have liked to learn a bit more about him, but I did really like what we got. And then tonally, I think this episode does something similar to last week, where it just strikes this perfect balance. There's some humor in this episode, there's a lot of heart, there's also a lot of intensity and drama, and then thought-provoking themes that are all really well realized and well balanced throughout the entire episode to make it feel like a really complete package. And so that is why I think this is one of the best episodes of the show. I really enjoyed it from the start, and by the end, I completely loved it. It's one of my favorites of the season so far. Again, I don't know where it's going to rank when all is said and done, but I can definitely tell you it will probably be in the top 5, if not the top 3. But those were all of my thoughts on episode 8 of the Planet of the Apes TV series, The Deception. And I want to know your thoughts on the episode down in the comments below, and I will be back next week with my review of episode 9 of Planet of the Apes. But until then, thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.